And joining us right now, the head coach of the Aztecs basketball program, our good friend Brian Dutcher. Dutch, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, guys. Great. How are you guys doing?
We're doing well. How's quarantine life for you? How are you staying busy?
Oh, man, I'm getting tired of it, to be honest with you. There's only so many things you can do around the house. I think I've done the majority of them. And, I'm on the phone. I'm on Zoom calls. So it's busy, but I'm ready to get back to campus when the time comes.
We talked about this a little bit, or I talked about it with you, Coach, last week on GoAztecs.com, but you lose Malachi Flynn, but you add Terrell Gomez. So from an offensive perspective, you're adding one of the elite scorers in the country. Do you feel like you're in a similar offensive spot than you were a year ago, where you can be one of the better offenses in America next year?
I think we'll have a chance to be, John. I mean, I like being older, with Matt Mitchell, Jordan Shackle, Gomez is a senior. Trey Polium is a senior. Nathan Mentz is a junior. Seiko Jr. I've got an older squad again, and I think that will be productive for us. And then we have a really good freshman class. So I'm by no means dismissing them, but they'll have time to come in and adjust to the system in the college basketball game.
Dutch, the Malachi news to opt in and go pro, take you by surprise, or did you kind of had an idea it was coming?
I kind of thought it would happen. I mean, there's not a whole lot more he could do from a college standpoint. Obviously, win more, and that's a big part of it. But he went 30-2 this year. He was either a first or second team All-American, MVP of the conference, Defensive Player of the Year in the conference. And so from a standpoint of him being most valuable to the draft, this might be the year.
How does the newcomer Gomez, who's a fifth-year player from CSUN, I know he's 5'8", but I know he's one of the great three-point shooters in the country. How does his offensive game compare to that of Flynn's?
He really shoots the ball on an elite level. I mean, I think Malachi made 76 threes or so, and Gomez made 111 and 113 the last 2 years. So he really shoots the ball. The thing he didn't do a whole lot at Northridge, just because of the way they ran their offense, which was very effective, was get a lot of ball screens. So I'm interested to see what he can do off a ball screen as far as creating for himself and others. He's obviously undersized, but he has a grit and toughness about him I really like.
Dutch, how is he defensively? You mentioned that grit and that toughness.
Yeah, it's he's not going to have the length, obviously, so he's going to have to be more of a full-court pickup guy, harass the ball in the full court, and then do the best he can to contest shots. To be honest with you, I was concerned over Malachi and KJ last year. I didn't have the length of a Jeremy Hemsley or a Trey Kell in the backcourt, but they both proved to be really good defenders, maybe two of the best defenders in the league. So if you're smart, you know where you're supposed to position yourself, you can do a really good job defensively.
Brian Dutcher joining us on Xtra. Coach, I saw Joel Mentz is now in the transfer portal, which means you may have 2 open scholarships available. What are the needs that you think you have, and what do you hope to address?
I'd like another big, obviously. But with that being said, if Nathan's back healthy, like we all hope he is, we'll have as fine a center as there is in the league. Maybe someone behind him that's capable of developing and giving us minutes off the bench. And maybe if they're good enough, obviously, if they're a transfer or a fifth-year transfer, someone that can impact the game immediately. But, John, we're pretty selective. I'm not taking bodies just to take bodies. We're all waiting to see if the one-time transfer rule goes through this year. If that happens, then there'll be a lot of movement, and there'll be a lot of players available. So there's nothing wrong with having the money right now and kind of see what happens with that rule change.
Dutch, I asked this question from an area of I have no idea how it works. How does the transfer portal work on a day-to-day basis? Is it something where I guess you get alerts or the team gets alerts, or is somebody checking it constantly?
Yeah, we're constantly checking the portal. And all the player has to do really is, contact the coach, say he's going in the portal. We can call down the compliance. They put the player in. He's in almost instantly. And so there's always 20 or 30 players showing up every day. And it seems like it's late in the process. It's really early. We're only in April. And so I think everything got sped up because of the COVID. But I think there's more names to come, and I think there'll be more players showing up in the portal and that's why we're trying to be selective as to who we take. We don't want to take bodies. We want to take players.
How are you able to do your homework on some of these players, like when you speak with them? I think I saw Terrell Gomez say something along the lines of, I was really impressed with Coach Dutcher because he had a knowledge of my game and my background and my experiences that I don't think anyone else really had. So how are you able to acquire that information when you speak to these prospective student athletes?
We had the luxury with Terrell of having played against him. And so we had watched tape on him leading into the game. I just thought he was really hard to guard. Even though we did a good job guarding him in our particular game, Jeremy Hemsley, one of the top defenders in the league when he was a senior or junior, whatever year it was he had him. And so I had an appreciation for Terrell's game, and I knew what kind of kid he was. I knew he was a hard worker, super focused on basketball, very organized, pays attention to detail in every part of his life, academics, athletic. And so I knew what kind of kid he was. And so sometimes you get caught up in the player, and just as important is what kind of kid he is. And I think Terrell is just a really outstanding young man.
Dutch, if you were a team that went 2-30 last year, I don't know how much interest from a portal standpoint you'd be getting, but you're now one of the top programs in the country. And does it make it that much harder to kind of, as you said, you're not going to just take bodies to take bodies. Does it make it harder to have to sift through, all the intangibles, everything that a player can offer to pinpoint, okay, this is a guy who absolutely can help us now?
Yeah, that's the thing with the transfer portal. There's a lot of talented players, but what you don't want to take is someone else's problems. So as talented as a player is, he has to be about the right things. And so we have to do a lot more phone homework. Sometimes, you might bring a kid in for a visit, sit across from him, look him in the face, go see him, and look him in his eyes and see what he's about. But now everything's done over the phone, and so it's harder to get that evaluation of the kid as a person. And that's the most important thing. He's got to have talent. He's got to be good, but he's got to be about the right things. And that's a harder thing to gauge when we can't bring him to campus and we can't go see him.
Coach, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, we had Eric Musselman on 1360, and he made a comment essentially saying that getting a really good player right now in the transfer portal is harder than getting a five-star prospect out of high school. What has allowed you to have the success? The Malachi Flynn's, who was a transfer, I know he had to sit out, then KJ, then Yanni, now Terrell. Why do you feel as if your program has been able to stand out over the last couple of years in the job that you and your staff have done?
Because we have had success with those kids. So they can sit here and go, wow, San Diego State went 30-2, and they did it with 3 transfers in the starting lineup. And so we have credibility built up there. And it's not just this last year's team. It's dating back to J.J. O'Brien and Dwayne Polee, Xavier Thames. You look at the transfers we've had, and that's just a small sample. Even a James Rahan that came back and all played significant roles for the Aztecs. Josh Davis, maybe one of the best rebounders we've ever had. And so we've got credibility built up that they know if they come here and can carve out minutes that they're going to have great success at San Diego State.
Aztecs head coach Brian Dutcher with us here on Xtra this morning. Coaches, does it then make you guys have to strike that, that fine balance? Because I would assume, or I'm not going to assume, but I could see a scenario where a really talented high school player who may be thinking in terms of, I want to go to San Diego State. What about, was thinking, well, look, and they're starting to take all these transfers and stuff like that. What is my playing time going to be early on if I'm good enough to crack the starting lineup? Is there a fine balance there?
Oh, there always is. But then you sell people like Jordan Shackle, Matt Mitchell, Nathan Mensah, guys that have been in the program for their careers and have made significant impacts. Jalen McDaniels, a year ago, who's now in the NBA. And so it's the fine mix of getting guys that are about the right things from high school and mixing in transfers that are all about the program, and you can have success. The formula is not always easy. Sometimes you get a kid that might not be about the right thing, but if you have all of them, the rest of them that are, they can pull that kid along, and they can get him to a better place. And so you might end up with a kid sometimes it's a little bit more high maintenance and needs more guidance. But if you surround them with other good players and the coaches deliver good messages, we can bring that kid along and make him a good team player.
Coach, we watched Matt Mitchell's development a year ago as he became one of the better players in the Mountain West Conference. Could he take the next step and become as good of a player as there is in the league? Could he be a Mountain West Player of the Year candidate heading into 2020-21?
Absolutely, Matt can. And it's just about growth in his game. And we've got to put Matt in more ball screens this coming year. He's good off ball screens, but there's a pecking order. And when the Player of the Year is the best off a ball screen, he gets more of them. That's not to say Matt's not good at it. And so we continue to teach. We continue to try to grow their games. And I think Matt will get a more prominent role this year, and I think he'll be more than able to step up to that.
Dutch, as far as guys that are on the team right now, from a facility standpoint, are they allowed to go into the Jam Center and work out by themselves, or is that completely off limits right now?
This is like nothing I've ever seen. We can't get anybody in any gym. So facilities are closed up all around the city, even to the point where the parks have either got locks on the top of the rims or they've taken the rims off the basket. So it's hard to find a gym to work out in right now. And so the guys are not in the gyms. They're trying to do strength and conditioning in their own homes. And it's a real challenge. So the sooner we can get through this, the better it will be for all of us. And I know these young kids are biting at the bit to get going. I mean, it's hard on me at 60. So I can't imagine them in their early 20s and younger to be sitting at home, not being able to get their exercise in, get their basketball in.
What's the typical day been like for you, Coach? Are you spending time on Zoom with your student athletes, your current players? Are you able to do that right now with the situation that's going on?
I've not done any Zoom calls with them. I talk to them every week. Last week, I know AG, who had shoulder surgery, was in getting rehab, so I put on my mask and I went in there and kept my distance and saw AG. Matt was in there getting a little work done on his knee, and so I pick and choose. I might be able to see him face-to-face from that 6-foot distance, but I'm on the phone with him every week. We have Zoom calls with the staff, and we have academic Zoom call every week. We have a all-head coach meeting every week on Zoom, and so we're taking care of our business, but obviously it's not the same as being in the gym, being in front of them every day. And we're such an important part of their lives, and they of ours. And so it's hard not to be able to have that personal contact with them.
Coach, final one from us. How much do you talk with Athletic Director J.D. Wicker, and are there any sort of updates coming from him by way of, okay, this is when we might be able to get things ramped up again?
He's trying to stay on top of it, obviously, more than any of us. He's got a football season he's trying to see if he can organize, but we're all along the same guidelines until they see some positive direction. The governor, the mayor, and see a timeline when we can get back to campus. President De La Torre, we're all kind of waiting to see where this thing is going, and hopefully, if we're trending in the right direction for long enough, that we can get back to campus and get back to work. But it's not going to be at the expense of public health and safety.
Well, I've got a portable hoop in my front driveway, and I'll rebound for somebody if they want to. We're right behind the school, so if they want to come my way, I'll put them through the paces, Dutch. I'll do my part.
You better be careful. You might have the whole team show up there.
And then I'm going to have to feed them or something like that. Hey, Brian, always appreciate the time, man. Keep your wits about you, and hopefully we're through this sooner than later.